Hey everybody, future Owen here. I just wanted to give you a little prerequisite that this video gets to be a lot. We're pulling the intake manifold to do phenolic gaskets. If you are looking to just install your Overtake silicone turbo inlet, we do have a written guide in a PDF down in the description, so go ahead and check that out. Otherwise, if you are looking to do phenolics and the bypass valve recirc hose along with your inlet, continue watching the video here. Hey everybody, Owen from Overtake. And today we have this beautiful blue GR STI with us. We've heard you asking for EJ parts and we have delivered. We're going to be installing one of our turbo inlets, a bypass valve recirc hose, and we're also going to throw on a set of Phenolic spacers. All right, so under the hood here, the turbo inlet, bypass valve hose, and Phenolic spacers are all pretty involved installations and they're all buried, so there's going to be a lot that we need to remove, starting with the intake airbox, top mount intercooler, and then probably the intake manifold as well. So let's go get everything unboxed and I can show you what we're working with. Now, starting off here, we have the turbo inlet. Now this fitment is specifically for the STI. We do have another fitment available for the 08 to 14 WRX. We'll have a separate video on that, probably linked in the description here. Popping the box open, you can see we have a red turbo inlet. We do offer these in black as well, but the owner of this vehicle wanted red, and also for the sake of you guys watching the installation, it's a lot easier to see what you're doing on the red pipe here. So we have the silicone turbo inlet itself, and then we have a pack by card. This one is packed by myself. And we also have a QR code of this install guide and a sticker, as well as the bag of hardware here. So we have a few clamps, few plastic PCV fittings, and then also an adapter ring that's going to go in here and adapt to your intake post-map pipe. So now that we have this unboxed, we also have the bypass valve recirc hose. Again, we have these available in red and black, and these are going to be for all STI fitments as well as 02 to 07 WRX. And then we have the hose itself along with a couple of clamps. So now we have these ready to go. Let's hop over to the car, start tearing into it. Okay, so here under the hood, I'm not going to show you step by step how to remove everything to get to the inlet. It's a pretty involved install, and really if you don't know how to take off your intercooler and intake, you should probably have a shop do this because there's a good chance you're going to mess something else up. Like I said, we're going to be removing the intake first. That's just going to be the post-map hose with these two clamps. Then the intercooler, we just have a couple clamps there, a clamp off the turbo. So now I have the easy stuff out of the way, we're going to dive in a little bit deeper here. So next up, we're going to need to remove the throttle body, the bypass valve recirc hose, as well as move the upper water tank out of the way. Now, a lot of that is going to involve messing with the cooling system. So you are at least going to have to top off the coolant when you're done. In this case, this is a buddy of ours' car. We're going to be doing radiator hoses on here. So we have already drained the coolant out, so it's not going to be an issue for us, but just keep that in mind. So getting started here, we're going to remove the throttle body, which is going to be 4 10mm bolts that run all the way through here into the manifold. And there's also a couple of electrical connectors, your TPS, and then also your IAC, and then 2 water lines are going to need to be removed. So there we have it, throttle body first part. We're going to set that off to the side here. And now we can get in here and we can get our bypass valve recirc hose off. Now I'm just going to remove the entire bypass valve assembly here. So it's just going to be the pressure line running into the top of the valve and then the clamp right down here. So there is the bypass valve recirc assembly out. This is obviously the hose we're going to be replacing, and this I would say is in some dire need of replacement. It is very soft, kind of cracking, and it's also just gross and dirty. So good option to get a replacement here when you're all doing the turbo inlet. But now let's get into getting the water tank off. So it's going to be your 2 lines that run down to the radiator here, your turbo feed line here, and then also there's another line underneath that goes down to the block. And then we just have 1, 2 12 mils up top and 1 on the side as well, and this whole tank is going to come right off. So now that we have the water tank off of here, we're just going to start removing everything else that we can see on top. So we have the boost controller cover, the 3-port itself, the evap sensors and the wiring for that, all the lines, the PCV lines running here into the turbo inlet. Underneath the throttle body here, we have another line that runs to the PCV valve, as well as a vacuum line here, and that kind of wraps up this side of the manifold. So we're just gonna start removing everything here. I'm gonna throw you back on the time lapse again, and I'll be back with you in just a moment. Now that we have everything off of the top of the passenger side of the manifold, we're gonna move over to the driver's side, and there's just a couple more things that we need to remove. So let me get you handheld and come in a little closer so you can see what needs to be done. So pretty simple stuff here. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna remove this vacuum line for the brake booster. It's just this clamp here, you can pull that back. Then there's a couple of electrical connectors for the secondary air injection. So we're gonna undo this one, this black one down here, and also this light gray one here. So we're just gonna undo those 3 connectors and the 1 vacuum line real quick, and then we'll move on. All right, so now that we have everything undone over here, our next goal is going to be to get the manifold disconnected and flipped up this way. Now, there is one last thing we need to do over on the passenger side before we can do that. That is to undo this wiring bulkhead. So this will all come along with the manifold. There's just a couple more connectors we need to undo. We need to undo our AVCS both on the top and on the bottom, and we need to unplug both of the coil packs on the side there. I know it's really hard to see, but I'll bring you in close to show you. So right here, we can see the coil packs for cylinders 1 and 3. We're gonna go ahead and disconnect the wiring from those real quick. And then it's just pressing on this tab and sliding the connector forward, just like that. And the same for cylinder 3. Pressing the tab, pull the wiring out. And then moving up top here, there's this blue AVCS connector. Gonna unplug that. There we go, get that back out of the way. Okay, so there are 2 more electrical connectors that we need to undo underneath the valve cover here. You can see the other blue AVCS connector for the exhaust cam, and then also this secondary gray connector down there. We're just gonna unplug both of those, and then the rest of this wiring, we can fish it back up above. As I mentioned, now that we have all the wiring pulled up from underneath the valve cover on the passenger side, we just need to remove the bulkhead up here on the strut tower. So that is going to be as simple as pressing this little retainer tab right inside of here. Just bring that down with your thumb, and that will release this gray flip up. And it's kind of a cam lock deal. So you undo that, and then your wiring comes disconnected like that. And then you can just take the clip off the bottom here, remove the wiring, and that'll all be loose. All right, so now that we have all the wiring undone here on the passenger side, the last thing we need to do is to break the bolts loose for the TGVs to the block, and then we'll be able to get the intake manifold flipped up that way. We'll be able to get the inlet out and get our Phenolics installed. Now, if you look down here at the intake manifold, you're gonna notice 2 different sets of bolts. There are these smaller 10mm ones that bolt the manifold to the TGVs. Those are a lot shorter. We're actually gonna leave those alone, and we're just gonna go for these larger 12mm ones down here. So there are a total of 4 on each side. You can see 1 there, 2 in the middle, 1 and 2, and then there's 1 more in the back right here, right in front of the turbo. And then it is a perfect mirror on the other side, the same 4 12mm bolts. You will now see that your intake manifold is loose in here. So what we're gonna be doing is very carefully getting the wiring up above here, making sure nothing is caught down below. And then we can just go ahead and lift up, and then should be able to just kind of sit up a little bit and move around so we can get this old turbo inlet out of here. Double check that everything is disconnected from all the barb points on the inlet, including my bypass valve recirc and the PCV in the back behind the manifold. Now I can lift up the manifold and start snaking this old inlet out of here. There we go. Now we have that old turbo inlet out. You go ahead, throw that off to the side. So now that we have our old turbo inlet out of here, I want to talk to you a minute about Phenolic spacers. I know I mentioned them a few times throughout the video, but I haven't really explained what they are. We got some packing material, pack by card, and then hardware and the spacers themselves in here. This is what's called a phenolic material. It kind of looks like a really dense cardboard, and that's essentially what it is. It's heat resistant, and it's got a nice smooth surface, so it'll mate up. Now these are cut to the exact profile of the intake ports on your engine. And we include extended hardware. Now these are twofold. This is gonna space your manifold up, which gives you more room to get a turbo inlet in. As you noticed, it's very tight getting a turbo inlet through the manifold between the fuel lines and the head and around the TGV and everything. So just having that little bit of space goes a long way. Now these also act as a thermal barrier between your intake manifold and your engine. So the heat that your engine is producing is not going to soak into the intake manifold as much when you're running these spacers, which can lead to lower IATs and overall slightly higher performance. So to get these installed, you are going to need obviously new manifold gaskets. And because these are perfectly smooth on either side, we recommend picking up 2 pairs of gaskets so you can have one underneath and one on top, and then repeat that on the other side. So a total of 4 gaskets, so you're going to want to pick up 2 pairs like I have here. Now to get these phenolics installed, you're going to want to start by lifting up the intake manifold here and removing the old gasket that's underneath here. We're just going to get rid of that. And then we can crack into one of our pairs of new gaskets. These are directional. They have this little tab here and this little tab here with alignment posts. And there are posts on the head that these will align with. So in this case, it's going to go just like this. We're going to slip that carefully through here, being careful not to bend or damage the gasket, and kind of poke that down over those alignment studs. The holes are a little bit undersized, so you have to push them down fairly hard to get them in place. And actually grabbing a small socket like this and pushing down around that pin can help get these seated in place. So now that we have the first of our new intake gaskets installed there, we can go ahead and fish the phenolic spacer in itself. Now it is easier to get it from the outside, I've noticed. And it does have those same alignment marks that the gaskets do. However, they are not undersized. So these spacers will just drop right into place. So as you can see, now we have the phenolic spacer down in there. We're going to take our other gasket and get that put down in place. Then we're going to go ahead and repeat the same steps over on the driver's side of the manifold as well. Okay, so now that we have our phenolics in on both sides, but nothing's bolted in yet, the manifold is still loose, there's still some wiggle there, we can go ahead and we can get our new Overtake inlet put in place. So as you can see, we have the inlet in place. Once again, everything's loose, but I do have the clamp for the turbo right back here. I'm going to get that loosened up just a little bit, slid back into place, and get that joint secured. So now we have the inlet all in place and secured. The next step to do is to get our fittings in place. You're going to have 4 of these plastic 90 degrees. You'll notice that 2 of them have a larger matching 1/2 inch on each side, and then the other 2 have 1/2 inch and one that is smaller. In the case of this vehicle, we're going to need the 2 smaller ones and 1 of the larger 1/2 inch 90s. There is also a 5th connector in your kit that has an Overtake logo molded on the back. That is going to be our PCV connection right back here by the turbo. You'll see there's this white connector. This is going to plug into that and then go into the inlet. Now on older vehicles, they may not have this white connector. That is where you would use just that other 90 degree large 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch piece. That would just go into the hose back here. Starting with the 2 smaller ones, you're going to have one of them that you take the large 1/2 inch side, and you're going to go into the side of the inlet right in here by your evap solenoid. And then the other one is going to go right up top in this hole closest to the manifold and just kind of loosely in place for now. I'm not going to push it all the way down. This is going to be for our boost control solenoid. Get that large 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch 90. That'll go in there and probably point something like that. This port right here is going to be the return for the rest of the PCV system. So you have 2 PCV connections on here. One is this white one with the electrical connector. The other one is this one right here. That is going to go to the crossover on top of the intercooler. Now that we have the inlet in place and we know where our fittings are going to be, we're going to get the extended bolts out of our phenolic spacer kit and use those to secure the manifold. so now we have the intake manifold bolted back into the engine bay. Now, one thing I did is I left all those bolts loose until I had everything in place, all the bolts rolling down, so there was still a little bit of wiggle to make sure everything could get aligned. Now I'm gonna go back through and I'm gonna get those all torqued down to the OEM spec of 18 foot-pounds. Now we have the intake manifold bolted back in place. We just have to go back through and put everything back that we took off. So I'm gonna start over here on the driver's side, hook up all those vacuum lines for the brake booster and the fuel lines, evap lines, as well as those electrical connectors. Then moving back over to the driver's side, we have all of the wiring that has to go down the side of the valve cover that we're gonna put back. And then we also have all of the connectors and PCV connectors that we need to attach to the inlet right here, get our throttle body back in. I'm just gonna throw you guys on a big time lapse, get all this done. I'll see you in just a few minutes. So as I was talking about earlier, we have this one special PCV connector in here. It's got the Overtake logo embossed on there. That is going to connect to this white PCV fitting right here, and then the barb end is going to go down into the inlet. So we start off by taking the gray plug that goes into this connector and sliding that into place just like this. There should be a nice click when that gets seated. And then we can take the barb and jam that down into the turbo inlet itself. There we go, and then that bottoms out. And then this PCV connector can be a little bit tricky to line up. So the last but certainly not least part of this installation is going to be the Overtake bypass valve recirc hose. Goes right in place, runs underneath the throttle body here, and then plugs into the turbo inlet down there. And there's a clamp that goes on this end and a clamp on this end that attaches to the bypass valve. So there we go. We have the new Overtake bypass valve recirc hose reinstalled. With that, I can now reinstall the throttle body with a new gasket, get everything plugged in for that, and then keep moving on. Well, there we are. That's another Overtake install all wrapped up, or I should say mostly wrapped up. You'll notice the intercooler and the intake are still off. Like I mentioned, there are some other projects being done on this vehicle while we have it in the shop, so I decided to leave those off. They're easy enough to install. The meat and the potatoes of the install is done. I have the turbo inlet, the bypass valve recirc, and the phenolic spacers all in the engine bay, all installed here. Now, the phenolic spacers, I know I glossed over a lot of details. We are gonna have a dedicated phenolic video coming out where we'll explain more of the science behind them too. So keep an eye out for that. We'll link in the description once that video is live. Besides that, if you're interested in picking up an Overtake Turbo Inlet, bypass valve recirc hose, or phenolic spacers, or maybe all three, head on over to the link in the description. They are all live on overtakeusa.com. If you like what you see here and you're interested in following along more with the brand, head on over to Instagram and Facebook and follow us at Overtake USA. Those links will also be in the description. Other than that, I've been Owen, and I will see you in the next Overtake install guide.